Coming to you live from a Klonopin detox center near you.
That's right, losers.
Jordan Peterson.
That's me.
Anyway, welcome to the Entry Level Left. Tonight we've got a special episode for you on marketing and capitalism. So to get this whole thing started, we'll introduce everybody for people who may be just tuning in for the first time. I'm Matt.
I'm Nathan.
Jared.
And we are the Entry Level Left. So to start the discussion off, what role do we think marketing plays in capitalist society?
So I'm going to go over something actually from an article that I pulled up from the Marketing Journal, which we're going to include in the show notes. Very briefly, it talks about how a company creates value by 1, developing an attractive product or service, 2, pricing it right, 3, placing it so that it is easy to find and get, and 4, promoting it, aka marketing it, so that the intended market knows about the product's existence and develops a desire for it. Those are often called the 4 Ps of marketing. One thing that I like to say a lot is that marketing is essentially the psychology of capitalism. So it kind of makes a commodity a commodity. It's like you can produce something regardless of its actual usefulness. The marketing is kind of what actually makes someone feel that it's useful or feel that it's useful to them and then go out and in turn buy it.
Right. It turns it into a commodity that is desired, or it creates demand, basically, for lack of a better way to phrase it.
It's kind of like capitalism is like the organization, like the thing that produces the product, like the system that produces the product. But marketing is what actually like makes the market.
It's what moves it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And two, like when you think about it, it's like conservatives are always talking about supply side economics. And the basic idea is that if you have the supply, people will come and take it.
Right.
But that's not necessarily true.
Right.
You know what I mean? And marketing is like the tool that you use to make something that you have a large supply of actually like usable.
Right.
Like for example, did you guys know Pizza Hut used to be the largest purchaser of kale in the US?
No.
Yep. And
I didn't even know about kale until a year ago.
They didn't they didn't even use it. They actually use it as like garnish in between the plates at the salad bar.
Oh,
so it wasn't even edible. It was complete. Actually, some managers, like on Reddit I was reading, they actually used to tell the employees that it wasn't edible to like make sure customers didn't actually eat it.
Right.
But what's weird is in 2011, on the show Ellen, George Bush fan Ellen.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I was hoping you were not going to just stop
no, we're
right
gonna
there.
praise Ellen.
No, we're going to beat Ellen up.
Right.
Tonight.
But Gwyneth Paltrow.
Oh, another fire-ass
fire-ass
candidate. Yeah.
She went on there and she made kale chips, and this set off this huge hype. This is when it got labeled as a superfood.
Right.
And like in 3 years, the prices went up by like 25%. So why I'm bringing this up is because it's weird how we had this massive supply of something that we didn't even really think was edible in 2010.
Right. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden by 2013, the price is up 25%.
It's so expensive
and now
to buy it.
It's ubiquitous. Like everybody knows what kale is. Everybody knows it's the thing you accidentally order at Chick-fil-A when you're not paying attention to what you're ordering.
Yeah.
Everybody like sees it on the health websites, and that's because of marketing. That's because they pick it up as like a superfood, which is just a buzzword.
Right.
You know, it's just a marketing buzzword. And suddenly something that we have a large supply of becomes something that's now in demand.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's just marketing. The whole point of marketing is to make people make decisions they wouldn't have otherwise made.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, marketing is why Gwyneth Paltrow can sell vibrators on her website for $150.
It's why...
and I'll keep buying them.
It's why Belle Delphine can sell her bath water for, what was it, like $30 a pop?
Yo, get your money, though.
Yeah.
I mean...
No, like...
whatever.
I'm not going to hate on Homegirl because, you know, she's getting her money.
That's different, though, than, like, corporate marketing, I guess. But also, don't ever go to the Pizza Hut buffet where they have the kale. You will definitely get diarrhea.
Yeah, and too, like, I guess it kind of plays against the whole, like, you always hear, like, the classical economist or even, like, the Keynesians will say something along the lines of, like, people are rational actors in the economy. And it's not true. Like, marketing exists because people aren't rational actors, you know?
Are the people really not rational actors, or is it just the mode of production that makes them irrational? Because if you think about it, in a socialist society where things are distributed differently, you know, you're working to produce a certain amount of commodities to supply all of society, and you're producing chiefly for need, then you don't have these like irrationalities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You don't have this like what I would consider like anarchy of production under capitalism.
But that's how it is. I'd imagine that anybody who's subjected to enough marketing is going to fall for it. It's not like these are dumb people that are falling for it. It's just that on average, when you put enough material out there about any one thing, of course people are going to buy into it.
Well, I think it's like it's so over. It's like so much oversaturation that you kind of just start associating from marketing like household names for certain things, and therefore you're like, okay, I've ran out of this, therefore I need to go and buy X, Y, and Z product because it's been marketed to you a certain way.
Head on, apply directly to the forehead.
I kind of feel like for example, like McDonald's and Coca-Cola, I feel like they're brands that they don't even need to market anymore. You know what I mean? Like, who doesn't know what McDonald's or Coca-Cola is?
But they also work on such a level of like where they can just do like very light like product placement type of advertisement.
But that's what they do in movies like Jurassic World and even like some movies coming out.
Transformers, like the Beats pill scene where it's like specifically like, here's the pill.
You like music? The pill.
Like, it's like very like obvious that they're advertising for something.
Right.
One thing that I really, really fucking hate in movies is blatant product placement.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're saying you want us to use the show to sell stuff?
Look, I know how this sounds.
No, come on, Jack, we're not doing that. We're not compromising the integrity of the show to sell.
Wow, this is Diet Snapple?
I know, it tastes just like regular Snapple, doesn't it?
You should try pomegranate. It's amazing.
I only date guys who drink Snapple.
I hate it.
Right.
Like, it makes me feel like I am, like I have a microchip in my neck and I'm in a fucking test facility. Like, it makes me feel like I am like in a dystopian world.
I mean, we are.
And it's like, it's huge. Like, for example, on Transformers, like Michael Bay, he actually got sued because like a Chinese state-owned company had paid like $750,000 to have their like ad at any point in the movie, and he ended up like not doing it. And it's like to think that people are paying that much money just to get their name into something, and like it's a pretty basic like psychological fact. It's literally called the mere exposure effect, or like in marketing they usually call it like familiarity, and that's just like if people know your name, they're going to feel more comfortable with you. And like, no matter what kind of exposure they've had to you, whether it's good or bad, you know, just seeing your name is going to make them like more likely to purchase you if they see you on the show.
Right. Well, it's even like those like name brand like test studies that they do where they give people like the sort of like knockoff brand Oreo and then like the actual Oreo, and they have each person like eat them and they think, you know, oh yeah, these taste the same. And then as soon as they do the test again, but they tell them that one's the Oreo and one's the like name brand, then all of a sudden the Oreo like tastes better because obviously they've been marketed more towards like associating. Yeah. You know, like
Oreo is high quality.
Right. But I mean, I think though, I mean, that's kind of a tangent, but like kind of getting back to what you were originally saying is, you know, how you always hear these arguments about from the supply side economics and blah, blah. Marketing, in my view, like the marketing that exists under capitalism, it is kind of one of those things that largely does act contradictory towards the notions of capitalism, just kind of like operating as this sort of perfect market structure that does certain things, and humans as rational actors will inherently purchase this thing to complete this service. It's like marketing kind of throws a bombshell on all of that, and that it's the whole reason it exists is so that you specifically go towards something that you don't fucking need.
Yeah, like why would marketing be a multi-billion dollar industry if people would just naturally pick the best products? You know what I mean? Like if there was true competition and we were all going to pick the best product and that's what's going to stay on the market, then why are they spending so much money on essentially just tricking you into
But
buying
a lot of it is like nonsense. Like we'll probably get into this more later, but we brought up like when we were writing the episode, like the differences between like a great value brand or like a store brand versus like a craft foods or, you know, anything with a very like prominent name brand, you know, like Heinz ketchup or
I mean Kellogg's cereal, you know, General Mills.
But
whatever.
if you look at where if you look at what corporations are producing those products, they're all under the umbrella of like ConAgra Foods and different things like this, like super conglomerations of corporations.
Even the like quote unquote knockoff brands are still those same companies. It's like they're selling you maybe the Chex Mix that sat out a little bit longer and got a little bit more stale, or like, you know, it's only certain pieces of it, or it's the more burnt pieces or whatever, but that's why it's
ultimately
reduced.
the same product.
But it's still like the money is still going to the same
and like you were saying,
companies.
and I call this sometimes when we talk about it, like the illusion of choice is that like when you go into the supermarket and you think like there's so many options, how could I ever pick something? Like, for example, I was looking into Unilever, which owns all the shower products and deodorants that you possibly fucking buy. They own Axe, Dove, Degree, Suave, Thermosilk, Tresemme, I'm probably said that wrong, Clear, Vibrance, Organic, Sunsilk, and some other things in foreign markets. It's like, if you go into that aisle and you're looking around, if you just like close your eyes and just like point in one direction, you're probably buying a product from them. There's no actual choice in that.
Right.
What I was going to say is like, I think you did say it's Tresemme, right?
Yeah, Tresemme.
You know the commercial Tresemme?
Ooh la la. Yeah.
Professional, affordable Tresemme.
Yeah, but that's the thing. We're talking about marketing right now. That's literally marketing.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we all know that jingle.
Right.
That is how like psychological marketing is under capitalism.
I think, and that's like too, Matt, earlier you were like, oh, McDonald's and Coke, they don't even need to, advertise anymore. But it's like, one, obviously they do from a psychological standpoint because that's how they stay relevant. And another way too is even though like we may not view them as having like real legitimate competitors because they're massive global like monopolies essentially.
Yeah.
Because as we all know, and we've discussed in previous episodes, like, capital has to constantly grow at a certain rate. They're still preparing for the inevitability or the potential inevitability for other competition, quote unquote competition in quotes.
Yeah.
That may emerge that even if it just pulls a slight margin away from them, they still want to be that household name because what marketing ultimately does is it adds legitimacy.
Yeah.
Like more than anything, it adds legitimacy. And if you, for a certain amount of time, have associated legitimacy with, say, Tide versus some name brand detergent, then they can charge you $11 for it versus the $3 that they could reasonably charge and still make a fucking insane
But
profit.
that's how they get away with raising the price, like in comparison to other products constantly. They're constantly, over the years, like maybe it'll take them 5 to 10 years, but that price will go up for that product. The more legitimacy is lended to it by a customer purchasing, and this is what we talk about, like maybe in other episodes where it wasn't clear, but this is what we mean when we say price signals in a market.
Right.
When people are buying these things, it's signaling to the producer that they're willing to pay more and they value it. You know what I mean?
Right.
When you have enough of a user base, your user base can withstand, the raising of prices. And, when you get enough popular support, through marketing, you're more able to increase your prices. Like, for example, Chipotle. I know a while ago they raised their prices on like all of their products, like all of their bowls and their burritos and all of that, the stuff that is inside.
Yeah,
the
but it's because they have brand loyalty.
Well,
You know what
also,
I mean?
and also one thing too, like, not only like them raising their prices because of, they've been around for a long time, they have legitimacy, associated familiarity or whatever that comes with marketing. But another thing, not to get too off on a tangent, another reason they do that and why you should not fall for any sort of marketing that advertises like some sort of like new formula that, does X, Y, and Z greater than the previous is because, and this is a testament to the university that I graduated from, there's like this new thing emerging with companies. It's not really new, but it's especially skyrocketed in the global economy. Is this like constant buying of patents, patents to like even just minuscule formula changes, so that like companies can basically market a product as being this like, let's say like Tide or something,
Right.
This radical new formula that gets rid of 95% more dirt than the standard brand, and so therefore they charge you $5 more, when in reality they like patented like the most minuscule addition, like chemical addition to it, and it does realistically absolutely nothing different, but because they bought that patent,
they can
market
say all
it.
this marketing bullshit.
They can market it to get you, to buy, to spend the extra money for something that's really not doing anything.
Like, for example, Toothpaste is a huge case study for this. Like,
all new Colgate Total Formula.
Do more for your whole mouth.
if you look at different toothpaste brands or even mouthwash brands too, like you'll see that they have this particular product and it's clinical strength. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it has such and such concentration of whatever chemical or whatever, phosphate or whatever it is.
Right.
And you look at the back of it, and then you look at the back of like a cheaper one or one just like random thing, random brand,
right?
Like Fixodent or just Aquafresh, some like cheapy brand of toothpaste, and then you compare them and you see like they have the same exact fucking chemicals in them. You know what I mean? They have the same exact ingredients in them. So how is this any different at all? You're just marketing this as clinical strength when realistically it maybe contains like 10% more of a particular like fluoride or something like that. But it's like realistically the difference is so minuscule that it doesn't even matter at all. Like if you paid for one over the other, except the price difference is so stark that it's almost criminal that they would charge so much more money for just, realistically the same fucking thing.
Right, exactly. Another thing, like not to get into, again, another tangent, but it's just marketing to me is like such, everything we've been discussing even just up to this point, it's like such an interesting social phenomenon, again, because what you were kind of saying earlier, Nathan, is it really does reinforce this illusion of choice. And it reminds me of that meme that got circulated, I think maybe by Turning Point or someone else, but it was shared by a lot of right-wing people on Facebook of this guy who like went to Cuba and he was in a grocery store in Cuba and he was like, oh, look at socialism. And he's in an aisle where it's a bunch of vacuum cleaners and they're all the same brand. And he was like, see, this is what socialism gets. And it's hilarious because, you go to any retail market, like we were just saying, and you go into an aisle of like the cereal aisle, the chip aisle, the cookie aisle,
everything.
the detergent aisle, the toothpaste aisle, and you look like you have all these different brands, but they're literally all owned by the same fucking conglomerates. And it's like if you just erased all the marketing and you erased all the advertising and all the name brands, you have, instead of all of them being, produced by some one state-owned company for a fair and set price, you have an inflated price from two companies, maybe.
Yeah, like for example, I mentioned Unilever earlier because I just think that they're one of the most interesting. They own 8 toothpaste brands, 8 mayonnaise brands, 9 ice cream brands, including Fudgesicle and Popsicle.
Why? Why do you need that many brands?
And a few gelato brands, 12 soap brands, 15 different detergents, and 17 different tea brands, including like Lipton, for example.
Right.
That's just one company. So if you walk in there and you think like, I'm not buying Lipton, I don't like Lipton. And that's the most problematic part is you might have a company like Coca-Cola where you say like, no, they had Colombian death squads. Yeah. And like, you might think like, oh, they're bad. Or, oh, hey, Nestle, they purchased half the water in Africa and privatized it. And I don't agree with them. But to avoid those products is to ignore half the supermarket.
Right.
It's literally impossible to avoid big companies like that.
Right.
And it kind of brings us back to, ye old Marxist mantra.
Right.
There is no ethical consumption under capitalism,
Well, exactly.
It's impossible to, unless you were just like the best person in the world who's just staying on top of this stuff all the time.
No, but
honestly, unless you
expect
grow your own
anybody.
food and like produce your own products, you're pretty much fucked.
even still though, yeah, I mean, unless you are completely off the grid, I guess, or some shit, but like, yeah, I'm actually really glad that you brought that point up, Nathan, about the whole ethical consumption thing, because I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, and maybe we can find some and like post it in the show notes or something. But I based on my knowledge of capitalism and marketing as the psychology, the reinforcement of capitalism in our society today, I would be very, very shocked if all of these so-called organic, ethically grown, ethically farmed, non-meat, products, whatever. If they're not literally owned by the same people producing all those things. And why that's significant is because, like, I'm not saying this is true. I don't know if this is the case. But say, like, something like those Beyond Meat brands or whatever.
Yeah, Morningstar.
Yeah, say they're owned by Purdue. Again, this is just a hypothetical, but I'm assuming this is the case. It more than likely is the case. Or some brand that's involved with that.
Put a spotlight on Kellogg since they are basically sitting on a gold mine with their Morningstar Farms brand, which has been selling fake meat products since the 70s.
Once I lost my virginity with Morningstar Farms, I couldn't wait to do it again in the morning.
You going out and buying those brands is still generating for the same money for the same company, and in turn subsidizing the cost of them to still kill animals.
We talked about it on a previous episode. We were talking about the Impossible Burger from Burger King.
And we were talking about KFC.
It's like, okay, so what? You're a vegan and you went and bought an Impossible Burger at Burger King. They're not putting that in a special fund that they're going to invest in more sustainable foods. They're literally going to probably use that money to kill more animals.
More burgers.
You know, so it's like
exactly.
It kind of defeats the whole like consequentialist view of veganism.
Or
you know?
even too, and this is an article we definitely need to include in the show notes. And I'm not shitting on people who are like vegan or don't eat meat or something like that.
No, like definitely
stay beautiful.
That's amazing. Good job.
I just think the notions of it being ethical from a sense that like it's more environmentally sustainable, or like that there's even this notion of ethical consumption in general. I just think that should not be the mindset. However, that said, there's an article we definitely need to link in the show notes. I think it was produced by The Guardian, that talks about like how the increased demand for meat alternatives, which are almost exclusively soy-based, has led to an increase in the rainforest deforestation in order to produce more
land for
soybean growth. And, you're talking about one of the wonders of the world. You know what I mean? You're talking about the most biodiverse animal present, like environment on the planet being destroyed, all these creatures being completely eradicated, all of that sort of stuff in the name of supposed meat-free, sustainable, environmentally friendly. And again, it all kind of comes back to the marketing, because the marketing is what sort of reinforces this idea in our brain that, again, and we'll touch on more of this later, if you have a problem with something, the only thing you need to do is just buy something different, as opposed to substantially change the system as a whole.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think that's the biggest farce, because we talked about how these different brands are ultimately owned by the same corporations. So you can't really even vote with your wallet. You know what I mean? You're not even, like economically, we don't really have democracy. You know what I mean? And people who are free market theorists or like proponents of capitalism will say, we have all this freedom of choice. We have all this and that. But like realistically, like if all those corporations own like 9 ice cream brands, 9 different mayonnaise brands, 9 different coffee brands, whatever the fuck it is, how much freedom do you really have to decide or vote with your wallet? You know what I mean?
Right.
You've got to really question, where it's all going, and like whether what you believe is actually like legitimate or if it's just like pure ideology. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I've been seeing a lot of that lately, like people just like with takes that are basically pure ideology with no like grounding.
Right.
Like when you see a person who is like a reactionary or a capitalist online.
You love capitalism. Really, you do. And you can't stand big government. Really, you can't. Don't believe me? Then I'll just have to prove it to you. Do you use an iPhone, Android, MacBook, PC? Read on a Kindle? Watch TV and movies on Netflix? Videos on YouTube? Shop on Amazon? Listen to Spotify? Search on Google? Send money on Venmo? Grab a ride with Uber?
They're just like that. They just like mythologize stuff, or they like act like their mythology is real, but it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I think even too, though, like marketing in itself is sort of as I was kind of hinting at earlier, marketing itself is kind of a shot in the face of this, very hard-lined capitalist view of the world in terms of like the market is kind of doing everything on its own. Like the sheer fact that marketing exists for you to believe that there is choice when in reality there isn't choice, and to engage with and invoke your irrationality into spending money onto something you don't actually need completely contradicts like the quote unquote like philosophical idea of capitalism, so, but again, marketing is essential to capitalism's existence. And I think another thing that I wanted to touch on, and I'd be interested to hear y'all's thoughts on, is, to me, not only is marketing the psychology of capitalism in the sense that it like sort of produces markets, but it's also the psychology of capitalism in that I feel like it's so saturated, like we are so exposed to so many products and so many commercials that even if we're indifferent to it, even if we don't feel like, oh, I saw this Coca-Cola commercial and therefore I'm going to go out and buy a Coke, it still reinforces notions of like capitalism is the only system that can exist. It's the only thing that's viable. Like there's no other alternative.
Yeah, and I don't want to like paint this picture that I'm saying that there's no difference at all between brands. Like obviously there are differences, but you know, they're differences because they're used to market to different types of people that have different needs or desires in a market. But that's the thing about it. It's like, you know, when we're producing for desires rather than needs, you know, we waste so much. We waste so much resources creating products. Like, for example, there was a meme and there was like a Karl Marx quote on it. I don't remember the quote, but it was just like, when I read it, it just hit me and I was just like, yeah, this is it. Like, this is what people need to understand about marketing and capitalism. But there were like Heinz brands and they were like different combination sauces.
Like the mayo chup and
the mayo chup and cranch, like ketchup and ranch.
Right.
And different things like that. And it's like, how have we gotten to this point in human history is so ridiculous that we're like making an entirely new product, like making a label line and a container line and all these different things that go into producing a product for literally people combining two existing products. But do you really need to mix ketchup and mayo that much that you would buy a fucking Heinz bottle of mayo, like mayo chup? Like, are you kidding me?
And that's why you have to laugh when people are like, capitalism inspires innovation. It's like, no, it doesn't. Like, you went from having the same people who manufacture ketchup and fucking mayonnaise, and they go like, wait a minute, what if we just put them together?
Yeah, that's like real ingenuity, right? It's like without capitalism, we wouldn't innovate. You know what I mean?
And the majority of products are like that. There's so many products that like the companies just conveniently make another product because it's like leftovers from the first product that they were making.
Right.
You know what I mean?
The only difference, honestly, between innovation under capitalism and innovation under any other society is a fucking patent. Like, quite honestly, like, because if, you know, these things, I mean, majority of the products that we buy, you know, in the market system are things that have existed for a long time. They've just been patented, rebranded, added on to a little bit here and there, packaged a certain way, you know, and then resold to us, even though...
Well, I mean, we talk about it from time to time, but like the Soviets basically went from nothing, like an agrarian society, and rapidly industrialized.
Right.
Like in my opinion, won the space race between the US and the Soviets. And not even that, but they also like pioneered a lot of computer technologies. And they pioneered like cellular network technology, like the first cell phones.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's Soviet technology.
Yeah.
And
there was still innovation.
To say that there's no innovation because there's no competition, there's no markets, like it's absolute bullshit.
Right.
Like all of that stuff is, even in capitalist society, subsidized by the public money.
Right.
Like all of NASA, all of like medical technology, like Jonas Salk and all of these patents on drugs and life-saving medications, like these things were financed by the public.
The public sector.
Like like human beings will innovate naturally.
Here's the thing.
When there's a need, when there's a desire for a product, when society needs something, like human beings will rise to the task.
And here's the thing. Innovation, like you just mentioned, medicine, science, any of those sorts of things, they require more than anything risk.
Yeah.
Okay. And the market, capitalism, capitalists, owners are not willing to take the risk.
Averse to risk because like
it cannot guarantee an end profit for a shareholder.
There's no profit in taking risk.
Like what people need to understand is that but the majority, the vast majority of innovation that shapes our society today, Wi-Fi, internet access, nuclear power, energy systems,
space travel,
space, airplanes, all that shit.
Cell phones,
The private
internet,
space
yeah.
industry,
Right,
SpaceX.
right. But almost exclusively public ventures that were then later patented and privatized, and for which the public sector, or the public in general, never was repaid.
Yeah,
on.
we've never been compensated for like paying for like this technology, and like we don't get a share in the wealth of it. But like in a socialist society, we would.
Well, think about it. As I said earlier, the university I went to, a public university, likes to state all the time that it has like one of the highest in the state of Florida, if not the highest in the state of Florida, patents, like patent rate, like students producing research or inventing things that then get patented into, sold off essentially to some private firm. So I went to a public university that receives public dollars.
Yeah.
Public money produced those things that are now being patented and sold as opposed to being a public good. And I think that, relating this back to marketing, again, marketing reinforces this idea that capitalism is the only way we can exist. The only way that, innovation and all that happens is if there's a fucking commercial for it.
Yeah. Well, I would just to interject there. I mean, I would say like labor creates these inventions. Labor creates all of these things. It's not like the ideas are randomly out there.
Even
it's
with
like
these
people are laboring to create inventions and make new innovations.
Well, even with these patents at these universities, it's like, the underpaid PhD student who's an adjunct and ununionized who slaved over their microscope for, 79 hours straight.
Who's working on a publicly funded grant.
Right.
With a publicly funded scholarship.
Right. To produce something, some script, some, whatever, that the whole goal is to get it patented and sold to fucking somewhere
Raytheon or
yeah.
whatever.
And I mean that's the thing. It's like, what's amazing is it's like actually, they say like capitalism stokes innovation. I would actually say that capitalism kills innovation.
It stifles it.
Because when I was at the university that I went to, every fucking business major and every fucking computer science major that I met on that campus who was working on application development or they were working in, their whole goal was not, let me develop an app that revolutionizes X, Y, and Z. It was, let me develop an app that's decent enough to get purchased by some giant ass Silicon Valley conglomerate like Google or Apple or Microsoft or whatever the case may be. And it's like, so you're basically saying like anything that you come up with that's creative and new, the whole goal is to make a quick buck off of it by selling it to some company that already has trillions of dollars. And so to me, that is a complete stifling of innovation. To me, in a Marxist, a socialist society, the innovation that occurs from public investment or even from individuals, I don't want to, act as if the individual is not, significant in their own way. Any of those things would be, revolutionized in the sense that they would be accessible. That's the whole thing. They would be accessible. It would not require a, substantial amount of money or any money in general if it was a necessity to acquire versus nowadays, at minimum, you have to pay $50 a month to get access to the fucking internet,
Yeah.
And I mean, I think it's all highlighted too, just by the fact that like earlier we were talking about like Nestle and all that stuff. Like the fact that there are advertisements on television for fucking water is all I need to know about capitalism and marketing.
I mean, water is something that everybody needs, you know, like why would you need to market that? But I think that brings us to like the next question. We've talked a little bit about how marketing is essentially like the psychology of capitalism, and it makes, products, it legitimizes products and, causes us to give attention to certain brands and things like that. But, marketing is really what makes the markets in capitalist society. And capitalist society is built on markets. Market is like the basic, way we understand capitalism. So I want to pose a question to the group about delving deeper into this idea of what exactly is being produced in a market and what things in a capitalist economy act on a particular product to make it a commodity rather than just, something that society needs. So what is commodification in context of capitalist society?
No, so I think kind of what we've been getting at this whole episode, I think kind of reinforces commodities like in the market is primarily marketing. It's the whole entire reason, again, going back to this notion of it as the psychology of capitalism, it's the entire reason why, you go into a store, whatever, you essentially get off your ass to go pick something up, not that you necessarily need, but that you want specifically based on what you have been advertised.
Yeah, like a quarter pounder with cheese.
Right. And I think that's why even if you're only like semi-hungry, it's like the advertisement, the marketing makes you like hungrier from just watching it.
Like the other day I saw a beer commercial online and I just went to the fridge and drank a whole Yingling.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sometimes I'd be like chilling.
A whole Yingling?
That's
whole hardcore.
Yingling.
Okay, a whole Yingling. Yeah, no. Sometimes
one whole Yingling.
Sometimes
for the adult, please.
Yeah, no. Sometimes I just be bored as shit, and I'm like, I got nothing to do tomorrow, and I see a Bud Light ad, and I'm like, I'm going to get fucking obliterated.
Get a
tonight.
40-pack of Bud Light cans.
And so then I go home, or I go to the gas station, and I buy a shit ton of Bud Light limes, and then I black out.
But it doesn't even.
Black out of
it
Bud
doesn't
Light
even.
lime.
It doesn't even need to work on that
You
level. Like,
wake up with diarrhea.
Oh my God.
even if you see like an ad for like spicy chicken nuggets and you're like, nope, that'll kill me. That's for sure. It still like puts Wendys in the back of your mind,
Right.
It just kind of drops that into the file of in your brain. Of,
Right.
What are the best fast food places? And then you think about the Wendys
Yeah,
commercial. And
subconscious.
you're like,
You're like,
I'm gonna go to the
right. You're like, I need
Wendy's.
some spicy nuts.
Just like what's
Yeah.
open right now? Like
Right.
literally only
Yeah.
McDonald's. What do I want from McDonald's?
Advertising to marketing makes like brands more accessible in your brain. That's the
Right.
only point of it. You know,
Right.
whether in the moment you're like, I want that or not. The whole point is just to make it more accessible when you might possibly want it.
Yeah.
yeah.
But to bring it back to what you said about commodification, just to bring it back all the way to the first example I used, it's the process of bringing kale from something that's a garnish to being something that's literally called a superfood.
Right.
You know what I mean? From being something that's like not even in demand, people don't even think about it, to being something that like people write whole
Right.
blogs about.
People don't
You
even know
what I
they
mean?
can eat it. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like that's the process of commodification, is just literally making something that's desirable. You know what I mean? It's not like kale just magically became edible
Right.
in 2011. It's just that at that point is when the market decided, hey, this is something we can actually make money off of.
Right. Yeah. And that's where, like, as we were talking about, like, sort of marketing, like being this, mode to kind of turn things into commodities, turn things into, I'm going to get off my ass and I'm going to go like purchase this product because I've been sold it a certain way. I think also marketing being that, like, kind of what we were talking about earlier, it's so like we're bombarded with so much daily. I think it's like 4,000 to 10,000 advertisements a day.
Yeah,
is
the
what
average person.
the average person like gets exposed to. But I think also like marketing under capitalism, I mean, it could be under any system, but specifically the system we live under currently, I think it also reinforces a lot of the sort of status quo, like state power, that sort of thing. And that's kind of where I want to transition. I know we had kind of already talked about it earlier with like it kind of making us feel like capitalism is the only system that can exist and the only thing that produces innovation and all that. But how does it reinforce what kind of currently already exists, politically, economically, and so on?
Kind of like we mentioned when we were writing the episode, marketing under capitalism is it's more than just selling products. It's a form of like mass social and psychological engineering, like we've been talking about. We've been giving examples of it, like when we mentioned the jingle, with Tresemme. But I think like that's the point of it, is to just create markets.
Right.
And there's only a need for that when, the distribution, the way that we distribute resources is fundamentally unequal in society. There's only a need for that type of advertisement when people don't know what they need. You know what I mean?
Right. Like marketing plays on, in addition to reinforcing things, I think it also plays on what currently exists in like society at large. For instance, instead of, Bud Light commercials being like, hey, come out and buy a Bud Light Lime because they taste good and they'll get you drunk or something like that.
They don't taste good.
Right. Actually, they taste great, but they will totally give you diarrhea if you get fucked up on them. I think that instead of it being like, hey, buy Bud Light, it's like cuts to a commercial of, troop coming home from war, and he thinks that no one's there in the house. And then all of a sudden, like, surprise, his family greets him. He's like, oh my God, Mom, I'm so glad to see you. It's been so rough over there, like killing Afghan civilians. And then
for oil companies.
Right. And then everyone's got like a Bud Light in hand, and then it's like Bud Light for families, for you.
Budweiser, a company with well over a century of supporting the troops, wanted to honor those who protect our right to dream.
I'm really proud to be brewing this beer for vets. Just proud to have a company that's willing to do that too.
The whole point obviously is to sell a product, but it also is, it's utilizing like American imperialism, like all these sorts of things to kind of get you to be like, wow, I had this heartfelt moment to really like go out and they're a good company, blah, blah, blah.
And here's the thing too, is like advertising has evolved so much. Like at first it was just like, hey, here's the product. We just want you to know it exists.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you started hearing, you started seeing all these different techniques that people are using, humor or like catchy jingles or really repetitive that head on apply directly to the forehead.
Right.
You heard about all these techniques and you learned about them in college. You know what I mean? They're things that you probably know about. But now we've entered like late stage marketing where like people are like using like actually heinous techniques to get people into a product. You know what I mean? Like at this point, we've gotten to the point where we've talked about it already.
Yeah, exactly.
Product placement, where just subtly, they don't need to tell you it's an advertisement, but it is. You know what I mean? We've gotten to other things, like for example, woke brands, like fucking Nike, who they're giant labor violators. You know what I mean? They're like
they employ slave labor and like pay people like pennies to work.
I mean, I work for them, so I can't speak to that. But
so I mean, that's been a running joke, but like we'll just make it clear, Jared, that you don't work for Nike.
No,
like,
I work for Citgo. All hail Venezuela.
Owned directly by Maduro and only Maduro.
He's the right hand man of Nicolas Maduro.
So getting back on here, the woke brands, they, it's like this new thing where like almost accidentally Keurig, remember that whole fiasco? They realized, holy shit, we can like get a lot of advertisers that is realized, holy shit, like there's a lot of free advertising out there for people who just are getting triggered. You know what I mean? And so that's where you get things like Nike come out. And Nike is a brand that literally has like 6 decades of labor violations stacked up, but they can release an ad with Colin Kaepernick and people are like, it's going to start a whole national conversation.
And
they're like, whoa.
It has.
Right, but they're like
it
really has, because it's like, they're like, shit, like, I'm wearing Nikes.
Yeah.
My boy Kaepernick standing up to police violence. Hell yeah. Like, I don't give a fuck what anyone says. You got conservatives being like, I'm never buying another product from Nike again.
They burn the Nikes while they're still on their feet.
But it doesn't matter, because whether you're the woke guy on Twitter saying, hey, this is just a corporate attention grab, or you're the guy on fucking Twitter saying like, fuck Nike, I'm going to chop my feet off because they have Nikes on them right now and
I'm going to burn them. My feet off.
It doesn't fucking matter. Whether you're doing one or the other, whether you hate them or love them or just feel indifferent about it.
It's attention.
It's attention. You know what I mean? All those companies, whether it's Gillette, because they did the toxic masculinity ad, whether it's Nike, whether it's Keurig, all their stock prices shot up. They don't give a shit about whether you like them or not. Their name is in the news. If their stock their stock goes up.
And they want to stand for something. In this era, making a political statement is financially beneficial.
On that same note, why I've always said, if America was fascist tomorrow and was advocating for extreme racism and extreme violence and extreme homophobia, all of those same companies would be right there advocating the same shit.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I mentioned it on a previous episode, but like, goddamn, like it was so fucking like,
that was literally the last episode.
But it was insane.
Okay.
It was insane.
Continue.
It was insane to witness going to an embassy hotel, like for a fucking work venture, and them having a Stonewall selfie station. I'm like, people literally were bludgeoned to get gay rights. And it still didn't happen
Right.
for years and years and years afterwards. Also, a lot of them communists.
And like to think that like Hilton or whatever, they don't care about gay
Oh,
liberation
they don't fucking
or
care.
any of that stuff.
It's like or also too, the other day I'm like in the store and I'm like, I haven't bought cereal in a while. I'm gonna get some cereal to like snack on this week. And I bought Honey Bunches of oats, and there's literally a Snapchat rainbow flag filter that they have. Like, I'm just like,
what does that have to do with cereal?
By the way, Honey Bunches of Oats, great fucking cereal.
It's absolute fire.
You know, that's gang right
That's
there.
absolute innovation at its finest.
Yeah.
Probably funded by the public sector
Yeah.
turned private. Anyways,
cutting to this episode is brought to you by Honey Bunches of
This
Oats.
episode brought to you by Kellogg's.
Right.
Wait, is it Kellogg's
Right.
or?
I don't fucking
I think
know.
it's
They all
Kellogg's.
own-
Whatever.
Honey Bunches
Kellogg's
of Oats.
owns everything.
Honey
Fuck it.
Bunches of feeling my oats from this Daddy Juice, aka Cat Morgan.
Oh my god.
But I mean, at the end of the day, it's like they'll always like marketing sort of is it makes, you know, when we were jokingly talking about like people earlier who like act in a way that's kind of like chameleon, like they blend in. Like,
oh yeah,
marketing is how capitalism sort of blends in with
Yeah.
the broader narrative that's happening at large. Like
Yeah.
the reality is the people want revolution. They don't know that they want revolution because of the way that things have been, the way that things are marketed to them. And capitalism as a system, as monitoring this fucking simulation that we're in, it has just co-opted the vast majority of public concern to make it seem that all you have to do if you want to change, you know, America's long legacy of homophobia or racism or extreme inequality is support certain products.
Yeah.
And if you support those certain products, then you're golden and it'll change it for you, rather than systematically uprooting the system as a whole, turning it on its head and establishing a socialist society.
Now say all of that again, but with the Ushanka that Nathan bought on your head.
Okay, I'll do that.
I didn't buy shit. What do you guys think?
Made in Russia, 1959.
Right.
I guess like what scares me the most about advertisement is that, for example, the woke brands is the new frontier. You know what I
Right.
mean? The whole like let's be super woke and virtue signal to customers. That's the
Justin
new.
Trudeau is woke bay.
But they all, damn it, they all chase the new marketing high. Every time there's a success in marketing, that's the new thing. Like they all need to do it. You know what I mean? And like it creates like literally at this point where we're creating culture. Like Peter Coffin, who's like a YouTuber, talks a lot about like cultivated identity, which is the idea that like these companies will push you into creating an identity, like lifestyle marketing almost, out of what products you consume. It's like to be a Star Wars fan, you have to consume something that's Star Wars. To be a gamer, you have to buy this game or that game. To be a fitness expert or to be a vegan or blah, 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 you have to buy this amount of products or whatever. And like the thing is once you start buying those products, there's a culture involved in that. You start defending those products.
Right.
You go on the internet and you talk about why this is actually the best product. You have to have an opinion.
Yeah.
You get defensive. You know, if you're a gamer and someone comes in and they want a girl to star in a video game, like, how dare they?
Well,
all right? How dare they come into my space?
Well,
and so you need to own this sort of like cultivated space. And what's scary about that is like it makes you buy in as a person more into the products that they're trying to sell you. You know what I mean? You're a ready-made fucking like market for them whenever they release something new, you know?
So basically, like for our listeners that don't understand, what Nathan is saying is if you support EA, you support capitalism.
Yeah, yeah.
Like if you don't like EA, you don't like capitalism, not EA.
well, I mean, I think what's interesting, and I'm not excited, but I'm interested to see like the
morbidly interested.
Yeah, the narrative.
That's a great phrase to describe Jared. Morbidly interested.
right. Yeah, it's all the heavy metal. But this sort of it's not a debate, but it's a conversation that's going around. I feel like more and more online is sort of like millennials and our fixation on nostalgia and how we've become increasingly like sectarian with nostalgia because of our like feeling of identity with certain video games, television shows, whatever, and not realizing that like we've gotten into such a like harsh recapitulation of like capitalism just trying to like make nickel and dime every single fucking thing that's ever existed ever, and just take the same old shit and rehash it in a new way for new audiences and also the same old audiences, that now we're like, wow, my favorite, Final Fantasy game growing up was Final Fantasy VIII, and I had all this individuality associated with it. Now that it's being like rebranded and re-released, like I hate everyone that fucking like likes the same thing. And I think it goes back to just this. I mean, it really realistically goes back to neoliberalism and the episodes we've done on that, and this hyper individualized economy that at the same time is less and less individual and individual experience, and more concentrated in like very few hands of like power structures and economic modes of production and all of that. And so you have like all of us kind of like our generation especially, and I think like the Zoomers are kind of getting linked into it as well, where we're all kind of on this like repeat cycle of like doing our like old lives over and over to kind of try and find new meaning in old things and try to be innovative with it, but also extremely sectarian at the same time.
And like you might think like, well, who cares? Like, why is this a big deal whatsoever? But like, look at how extreme people get about these cultivated identities, like Gamergate, for example, where like women got harassed for being part of video game culture. Like, look at like fucking people rioting at McDonald's because of the fucking goddamn pickle Rick fucking Szechuan sauce. Like, people go out and actually fucking make things happen because of products. You know what I mean? That is scary that people are like willing to like go out and just to be like, I am the biggest fan.
I remember that shit, the Szechuan pickle Rick sauce.
Well, it's like even our three dumbasses like out here being like, yo, my dudes, we're going to get on World of Warcraft and fucking hop on here. And like, also we're buying it because we all want access to Classic to play by ourselves. And or with our like other.
That was funny. Like Jared this week just basically like made us all play World of Warcraft.
But it's like we're all paying money for something that came out in 2005 that
2004
or 2004 that a lot of people are like there are a lot of people who are now getting back into World of Warcraft again, who left the series a long time ago, who are playing Classic and are like literally fuck anyone who plays live and fuck anyone like blah blah. And it's like you're defending some shit that has no fucking
talent system is better. The talent system is just better in Classic.
Let's not get
God
into this
damn
right
it,
now.
Matt.
Like, what can I say?
They're selling your childhood back to you. They're saying to you like, do you remember that time you had so much fun staying up all
you
night
weren't being crushed by the
I mean, WoW Classic is a perfect fucking example for this episode.
Yeah.
You're being marketed the same shit that you like enjoyed when you were a kid, but now like if you go back to it, you're just like, wow, this is grindy as fuck. Like I spent 30 hours to get to level like 10. And in live it takes me like an hour to get to level 20.
Another thing is that these cultivated identities that we're talking about, they can be like completely contradictory as well. Like leftists who think that all consumption is evil will literally go out and buy Che Guevara shirts. You know what I mean? It's like, how the fuck can these two things exist at the same time? And like, the market doesn't care. You know what I mean? They're not making a judgment on your morals. They don't care at all. They're just trying to sell you a product. You know what I mean? And personally, I get just so worried. We're like, where is this pushing us? Like morally as a society? Like, I don't really usually worry about the morals of society. But if anything makes me worry about it, it's like where advertising is going to push us to, you know?
Right.
I mean, definitely. Yeah.
Speaking of all that, basically what we're getting at with this episode is that everyone needs to play World of Warcraft
Classic with us.
And Classic
and hit
with
us and give us gold.
Give us all of their money that they have. And
hit me up on BattleNet.
Carry
my
us.
name is Class Seductionist.
Carry us through Ragnaros 40 man.
Right. Just kidding. We all suck and we're all going to die a lot. But yeah. Anyway, that's daddy juice for you. So
that's daddy juice for you. Oh my god.
I think like another disturbing part of marketing so far has been like companies trying to blend in as people on like Twitter. for example, like Wendy's coming in and being like sassy to other fucking like fast food places.
Oh, dude, when they were doing I don't know if it was Wendy's. It was one of those fast food chains, and like all of those like Warped Tour bands and shit were like, yo, Wendy's, roast us. And Wendy's was like, state champs, more like state craps. You know, and everyone was like, everyone for a moment was like, wow, we don't totally live in a like cryptic dystopia where
or do you know how like Arby's has basically like
adopted anime culture?
Yeah, they basically like market to anime nerds.
They
now.
do the Arby,
which I am totally an anime nerd.
I'm like Sailor Moon titties. Time to go buy some curly fries.
A goddamn fucking hentai drawn in Arby sauce on a bun, and you're like, oh fuck, that's awesome.
Yeah, they draw like tentacles on an Arby's bun. I'm like, yeah, of course I need a roast beef sandwich,
but
with horsey sauce.
I will say, okay, that's disgusting, and anyone who likes horsey sauce is a revisionist and a reactionary.
Yeah, they get the wall.
With that said, though, very much looking to establish a socialist curly fry caucus.
Yeah,
so
of the DSA.
Anyone who fucks with curly fries and wings and blue cheese, and Arby's in general, because people apparently think Arby's sucks. Hit me up.
I'm just waiting for like Lil Debbie's to release like a mumble rap fucking album.
My God,
that's gonna be sick. Or like the Lando Lakes lady, like to have a premium Snapchat.
What are you talking about?
I'm gonna fucking hit that shit up.
That was a lot.
The Lando.
That was a lot. But
Lando
I'm here
Lakes,
for it.
Like the butter girl.
Right.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
What?
Or what I'm waiting for
is that cultural appropriation?
Cultural appropriation. What are you talking about? They're about to rebrand for the 2016 election.
Butter is straight white people.
They're
food,
about to rebrand.
White people.
Lando Lakes is about to rebrand for the 2020 election. They're gonna get real woke. They're gonna have Elizabeth Warren on their motherfucking butter and cheese.
Elizabeth Warren. I just took a DNA test. Turns out I'm 0.0000001% Cherokee.
Right.
It turns out I'm 1/512th butter.
When you sow Cherokee and so woke, you ain't even at the pipeline protests. Damn.
Do you guys remember when like Sunny D was like depressed on Twitter or whatever?
Oh man.
like Moon Pies. Like I'm just scared because like
I want to be in the
Moon Pies and Sunny D talking on Twitter. What world do we live in?
But that's what's scary. Is like it's getting like purely dystopian. Like it's hard to criticize a company when they have like a literal persona.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah,
Time
it's
out.
like a person.
Sunny D. Okay, I don't know if you were talking about a Twitter person, but the existence of Sunny D itself is dystopian because it's
that
literally
shit is not orange.
It's
juice.
not orange juice.
That's not orange.
It's
juice.
not orange juice, but people are like, "Hey,
it's like synthetic ass orange juice."
They're like, "Hey, we should buy this diarrhea water." Like,
Sunny D is like the K2 spice of marijuana, but for orange drinks.
Hello.
It is.
Hello, sir. Would you like to buy this orange flavored juice?
You know what's
and
orange flavored
Tampico,
juice.
For all you working class Tampico followers out there, you're doing the right thing.
Okay, but y'all want to talk Sunny D as being very fucking just straight up out there.
Damn.
Totally knockoff simulation orange juice. Don't forget about
the Karl Marx brand orange juice.
Don't forget about Tang. That's all I'm saying.
Tang, dude.
That space OJ.
I remember we had a whole carton of like Tang powder mix.
I ate that shit
that
raw.
literally stayed in our cabinet in our pantry from when I was like 9 years old to when I was like 17 years old.
I ate Tang powder raw.
Wow, that's probably why you like metal,
right?
Like that's why probably why you play in a metal band.
3 brain cells.
Yeah, all 3 brain cells drinking Tang powder.
But anyway, markeking is here.
We got way out
to
there.
tell us that orangutans drink Tang.
Guys, we're back. We're back, guys. Sorry about that.
Yeah, we
took a little bit of a journey.
Yeah, on Elon's private rocket.
On
ship.
Elon's private Tangerang.
Tangerang sponsored rocket ship. Tesla brand Tang.
I think like another creepy
brand Tang.
I think like another creepy element of marketing is like
Cranch. Ketchup and ranch. Like, are you fucking kidding me right now?
It's
Damn.
it's space ranch.
Sir,
you
this
can
is my emotional
you can
support
recharge
ranch.
the bottle. You can recharge.
You can plug the bottle in at any like electric car charging station in the city that's gentrified as fuck near you.
And it sings the South Africa
Yeah.
theme song.
And Nelson Mandela makes a cameo.
I think like another
Revisionist.
another heinous element.
What is going on?
This is all staying in, guys. I'm sorry.
Is this all staying in?
No,
Are
it's
we
not.
cutting the-
We're convinced none of you are listening.
I really wish
So, like,
I had a
like,
giant blunt. Anyway,
Oh
continue.
my god. Damn. I'm so confused.
Okay, y'all want to wrap it up?
Yeah, how do we wrap this up?
All right, so to tie all of this together, marketing is essentially the psychology, if you will, of capitalism. It is the overarching ideology that takes the basic notion of commodity exchange and puts it onto the market in a way that tells you what exactly you need to purchase and why and how you need to purchase it, and defies all rationality, irrationality, and then repurposes it again to market you something else.
And with that, we want to thank you guys for listening to the Entry Level Left. As always, you can find us on every major platform, always free to download for everybody. We want to make sure that everybody can listen to the podcast without any type of impediment to that. If you guys do enjoy what we produce and you value our content, please consider going on Apple Music or Apple Podcast to leave a review. Any link in our link tree will take you to where you can get our podcast. If you're interested, we have a Patreon that you can subscribe to. We have PayPal as well on our link tree. And if you guys want to interact with us, like we said in previous episodes, we're always available on our Facebook page. You can try to reach out to us on Twitter at Entry Level Left. And we'll always try to include our viewers' thoughts in future episodes or any ideas that they have. So with that, guys, thanks again for listening to this episode, and have a great night.